The Committee on Parole is called back to order. We are currently at our remote location is Caldwell Parish with the support staff of Mr. Glaub. Is that your name, sir? Glaub?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Glaub, is there anyone there from Caldwell Parish in the room with you?
Yes, sir. Sergeant Caraway.
Good. I'm sorry, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sergeant Caraway, Caldwell Correctional Center.
Sergeant, thank you very much. Today's our hearing today is Mr. William Glaub. Mr. Glaub, if you would please give us your full name and your DOC number.
Yes, sir. It's William Lawrence Glaub. Date of birth is August 18th, 1977.
Mr. Glaub, let me explain our process to you. I'm in the process of trying to get my computer to.
Yes, sir. No problem.
I got you. Okay, it's coming up. Mr. Glaub, let me explain our procedure to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. After we've done that interview, you'll have an opportunity at the end to make any statement you wish to make for the board votes. Do you understand our procedure, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Glaub, how old are you, sir?
45.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
Since March of 21.
So what is that? How long?
A year and was it, maybe 8 months, I believe.
Okay. Why are you in jail? Why are you in prison?
Because I violated my reentry probation, picking up a new charge.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about Mr. Glaub. You're a seventh felony offender. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
At 45 years old. Tell me how that happened. Tell me who Mr. William Glaub is. Why all the crime?
I had a problem with theft. Growing up, I was always jealous of what other people had and what I didn't have. My motivation, mainly, as I got older, was due to always trying to live above my means. So, just critical thinking errors on my part.
How many times have you been to prison?
Let's see. Three times, 4 times.
And how many years have you served in prison altogether, roughly?
Not related to this charge.
Every
Okay.
charge?
Yes, sir. 7.5, almost 8 years, maybe.
How much education do you have? How far did you go in school?
14 years.
Okay, you graduated high school?
Yes, sir.
Went to college?
I have 2 years of a business community college.
Okay. Have you ever had a real job?
Yes, sir.
What kind of job did you have? Or what kind of work did you do?
I've had multiple sales positions. Prior to my incarceration, I was in car sales. But I've worked in numerous sales positions.
Of the programs that you've taken while you've been in prison, the various times that you went to prison, have you taken any kind of programs, Thinking for a Change, any sort of programs like that that would help you understand what your problem is or why you commit these crimes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, which programs were those?
So, on this recent incarceration, I've recently completed a cognitive behavioral program structured
Prior to
to
this recent Let's
Okay.
talk about in the past, because I'm trying to
Okay.
figure out how you got to where you are today. I mean, you've gone to prison at least 3 times.
Yes, sir.
You would think that while you've been in prison, you would take some programs that would help you.
Yes, sir.
And then you
Um,
get out, you get revoked again, because you go back to committing crimes. Can you tell me why that is?
I think it's this particular time, I can tell you exactly why. As far as prior to this time, I don't think I really had the full knowledge, as far as understanding about thinking errors and, how I think and how wrong it was, as far as the way of my thinking. I have taken other courses, substance abuse to try to get a hold of my addiction, even though
Let's talk about your addiction. What is your addiction?
my addiction is to always try to live above my means, which turns into me taking things that don't belong to me.
Do you have a drug addiction or alcohol addiction?
I've never done drugs or alcohol in my life, but my addiction is no different than any other person's addiction as far as somebody that does use. It's still a problem in my eyes.
So how long did you stay in prison in the reentry program?
I completed the program successfully.
Let me answer my question.
Yes,
Who
sir.
was your judge?
Who was my judge?
Correct.
Judge Knight in St. Tammany Parish.
Okay. Judge Knight initially sentenced you to the reentry program. How long did you get sentenced and go to Angola for?
2 years.
3 years.
2 years.
What did you do? 2 years. What did you do in those 2 years?
I completed numerous courses, a reentry program, substance abuse, thinking for a change, parenting. I completed numerous courses, followed the rules, never committed any other offenses as far as while incarcerated.
And how were you able to do that while you were incarcerated? How were you able to follow all of those rules? That's an outstanding program. That's probably the best program that we've got in the entire Department of Corrections. And you completed it successfully.
Yes, sir.
How did you do it? Did you fake your way through it?
No, sir. Determination. I did it for myself. I didn't have much support at the time, during that incarceration. But
When you got out, you went back to Judge Knight's court?
No, sir. Judge Knight had retired.
Okay, who was the judge then?
Judge Beers.
Okay, Judge Burris was the judge. You would
Yes, sir.
see him on a regular basis. Did you have a job?
Yes, sir.
Where were you working?
I was working in sales at Rainbow Chrysler Dodge in Covington, Louisiana.
That's a job you got through the reentry program, right?
Yeah, well, no, sir. I actually worked my way up to that position. I started small. I worked for another reentry inmate that agreed to help me. And then once I progressed with that, then I gained employment with other positions.
So you're working your way up.
Yes, sir.
How often would you see Judge Burris?
So I was in phase 4 when I picked up the new charge. Phase 4 sees him once every couple months.
Okay.
But we're still randomly drug tested.
No.
And
How do you picked up the charge? You committed a crime, right? What'd you do?
a misdemeanor domestic charge.
So what happened there?
I guess I slipped up, my wife and I got in an argument and I messed up,
What happened to all the anger management that you took? What happened to all of those programs that you took?
at that moment, I didn't think it through. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. You know, this is honest I can be with you, sir.
So how are you a different person today after having served a year and 8 months in jail on this new charge?
Well, I've had a lot of time to reflect, and understand, my stupidity as far as, and I knew better. I knew I had all the tools basically handed to me, to have success in life. But now I just recently completed a cognitive behavioral program, which kind of reiterated a lot of stuff that I already knew. But this program here is mainly tailored towards thinking a better way for employment and other situations, everyday situations that may arise.
What was the new charge you picked up on the domestic violence? What charge? What was that?
No,
Your file said it was a felony. So what were you charged with? What were you arrested for?
I was arrested for domestic violence.
All right. Well, there are a lot of domestic violence. There's domestic violence involving strangulation, which is a felony. There are different classes of domestic violence. Your file suggests it was a felony. Was it a felony domestic violence charge?
The charge started as a felony, yes, sir.
So what exactly happened between you and your wife? Tell me what happened.
We got into an argument, and she went to go pick up one of these ceramic coasters that we had, and was starting to throw it at me. So I snatched her hair, and that was pretty much the end of it. And then the next morning, I tried to tell her that I was going to go get help and try to, solve the problem, but it was too late. So the next day.
What programs are you currently in now? What are you taking right now?
I'm actually just enrolled in anger management.
How long is that class going to be?
It will go on I think the ending date is December 14th, the second week of December.
You have almost unanimous law enforcement opposition. You test out very, very high risk. What's your disciplinary record in prison?
All right.
None.
You do well under supervision. You do well in a structured environment. Apparently, when you get out, you have real significant problems. I mean, I show that you've been revoked at least, 4 or 5 times? Every time you get out, you get revoked. Is that right?
Not exactly.
Well,
I did.
I'm showing at least 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Right, on probation. I did complete my parole satisfactory when I was released in 2006. So 1 out of 4 or 5. It's not really good either. So
That's fine. Tell them the whole other company that's here, because I'm in the 12 years.
Is whoever's there with you, she give us any information about you, how you doing there? Yeah.
I'm not sure, maybe.
Lieutenant Dow.
Let's see.
Kenny, can you tell us a little bit about how he's doing there?
Be honest with you, he needs to take his anger management.
He's got some problems that y'all have seen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And it's Lieutenant Downs.
Thank you, Lieutenant. We appreciate your comments.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Glaub, anything you'd like to say before we vote?
Yes, sir. Actually, I was seeking to be granted parole upon completion of the anger management course that I'm currently enrolled in, and upon completion of participation in the work release program. I feel that after completing the anger management and the work release program, it'll give me an opportunity to not only save money, but give me a sense of responsibility, and save money from a hard-earned paycheck. So
Thank you, Mr. Blunt.
Lieutenant,
Yes, sir.
is there a transitional work program at your facility?
I'm sorry.
Is there a transitional work program at your facility?
is my work release.
We have a work status, but I'm not for sure of
There's no work release program.
transitional work program.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bob, is there anything you'd like to say before we vote?
No, sir, I do know that they don't have a TWP here.
Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Blob, I've listened to you. I've looked at your file. You've had every opportunity that we can give. You've taken some good courses. You've taken Celebrate Recovery, Reentry, Thinking for a Change a long time ago. Not this time, but before. And then you get out, you still reoffend, and then you get into the reentry program, which is the best program we have. You complete all of that, you get back out, and you find another way of committing crimes. You have obviously, as Lieutenant pointed out, an anger issue, maybe not addressed previously, but it's something that needs to be addressed. I also think you need mental health evaluation and make some determinations that you need to look inside you to figure out what makes you tick. You talked about your addiction. I accept that. Hopefully, you might be able to get some healing with some mental health treatment. But based upon law enforcement opposition, your criminal history, your high-risk assessment, the fact that you were revoked under our reentry program, my vote today is to deny you, but to encourage you to look inwardly and try to figure out who you are and what you can do to better yourself. Good luck to you, Mr. Roach.
May I ask a question?
Just a second, we're voting.
We're voting. Mr. Chairman, my vote is the same, for the same reasons.
Mr. Freeman?
Mr. Glaub, yeah, you can tell by talking to you, you're quite smart. I mean, you definitely have a high intellectual, you could handle things if you could get your problems under control, but with your poor supervision record, my vote today is to deny.
You have 3 votes to deny. Your parole has been denied. You had a question. I'll answer it if I can.
Okay, well, I was gonna ask if I could have the opportunity to participate in the Steve Wool program. I know that I don't have, any drug offenses or anything like that. But like I mentioned earlier, my addiction is no different than anyone, that.
I personally think that's a good idea. If I were you, I'd do everything within your power to try to get into the Steve Hall program. We'll make a recommendation that perhaps if you apply for that, then you should be allowed to go in. You'll have to be evaluated to determine if that's something you need. But you're right, an addiction is an addiction. And that may very well be a program that could help you tremendously. So good luck to you.
Okay. I've already been screened for it, and their requirements have minimized since shutting one of their locations down. So that's why I was requesting to see if your board can send me there.
I can recommend.
We don't send people anywhere. That's the Department of Corrections. We can simply make recommendations. I would recommend that you get a mental health evaluation and for them to try to determine what it is you need. And if Steve Hall is one of those things, we would strongly urge that you be allowed to get them to that program. So good luck.
They
to
don't
you.
have, they don't have a mental health doctor here.
Does that complete us, Your Honor?
Wow. You know, the end of it,
We'll suggest, we'll make a
the
recommendation.
end of it is, the end of it is so important that we just saw that. This entire hearing, I'm sitting here thinking this man has a mental illness. You know, I'm trying to figure him out. Because you can't figure him out. I believe him entirely. He has never used drugs or even alcohol in his entire life, and I believe that. You look at him, the first thing I thought is there something wrong? His eyes, is twitching, the way his mannerisms are going. It all adds up. He is smart. He could see the way he thinks and the way he's calculating everything. He's a smart guy. I'm trying to get the zoom so we can get just in his image, but it's just so difficult to use YouTube like this. They don't let me move it. And here he is basically begging for help. He's begging for, they're saying, well, you need to get a mental evaluation. He's pleading, well, they don't have anyone who can give me a mental evaluation. And the board at that point they just tuned it off. And that sadly is burying our heads in the sand. It's so obvious. I know. Well, isn't that what's the word? Not cliche or not even ironic, but it's I don't know the word I'm looking for. I have no experience. I'm not a professional, and even if I was off of one YouTube thing, but I don't think you need to be experienced or professional to listen to this and see that man and say he's probably got some kind of mental illness. And it could just simply be a misdiagnosis that he never got in his life. He's zeroing it down to his problem with theft, which has gotten him in trouble. It's not an addiction, not a drug addiction that he's stealing. He zeroed it down to, well, I wanted nice things. I never had it, and that's why I do it. That could be the whole truth. It could be part of the truth. It could be other reasons, right, that he's not aware of. But here he is. Here's a man trying to get help, pleading for help from the board. And then when they say, well, go get a mental evaluation, he's like, well, they don't have any mental help. Now what's going to happen? You have a man that clearly seems intelligent, that doesn't have a substance abuse problem and never has had one. Not one write-up. Who is asking to go to a program to help fix him, to help fix his stealing addiction. He clearly pointed out, I know I don't have a substance abuse issue, but my addiction, and I can get it solved. And they said, yeah, that's a great idea. He says, well, I've applied, but I can't get through because they closed down one of the facilities. And then they said, well, get a mental evaluation and see if they can recommend you. And he says, they don't have, I can't get a mental evaluation. They don't have that here. You know, it's strange. It's strange to me. They don't let him out. They don't even do, you know, they treated him with respect, and you give them that. They treated him, you know, with respect, and simply put, there's nothing they could do. They don't have the power to change, to solve this problem. They don't have the ability to say, okay, we'll fix that mental health issue. They just had to sign off. There was nothing they could do. So, you know, this isn't on the board's fault. This is really, well, okay, so here's where I'm upset at the board. And I'm upset at the board because I've seen other cases where they let out sickos, where they let out perverts, where they let out the worst, literally the worst monsters that this world can create. They will give them parole or tell them we'll see you get out soon. But someone here who clearly is, you know, you can say he has a temper problem, and maybe he does. He's admitted that he has it. He spoke about grabbing his wife's hair when the prison lieutenant or the officer there said that he needs to get anger problems. He looked pretty upset. Now, on the flip side, if the guard was just saying that because he heard the board say it and not because he has ever actually expressed anger, then I think I'd be show that face too. The face he showed, you know, he looked pretty pissed. But he has no write-ups. If he has no write-ups, then what do you mean? What this guard is all of a sudden saying, yeah, he needs anger management? So I don't necessarily buy it. Like, I don't necessarily believe that guard, he might not have any dealings with him. Like, the guard could literally be just mirroring what the board is saying, because I've seen them do that. I've seen them do that before. If you have no write-ups, how can you say you recommend it? You get what I'm saying? Like, seems to me he has pretty good control. But according to himself, he does have an anger problem. And but my point is that if you let him out, it's not like he's at risk of hurting a child. It's not like he's at risk of hurting another person. Right? Even like he might steal again. I don't know why they couldn't get him out, just to send him to a facility where he can get a medical evaluation. Why couldn't they do that? I'm so happy that we saw this, that he, to his credit, at the end fought. He's fighting for to better himself. He's fighting, you know, he was fighting there with the board, trying to get a last, you know, and we just saw a huge flaw. Anyways, that's the way that I saw it, and I would really love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Speak to you later.